March 19, 1943. Yellow Sea, off the coast of China. Lieutenant Commander Dudley Morton stands on the bridge of USS Wahoo, salt spray stinging his face as Pacific swells roll beneath the submarine's deck. Below his feet, diesel engines rumble at full throttle. The submarine cuts through the water at 18 knots, fully surfaced in broad daylight, hunting Japanese merchant ships like a destroyer. This shouldn't be possible. Submarines are supposed to hide beneath the waves, attacking from the safety of the depths. For 20 months of war, American submarine doctrine has demanded caution, stealth, submerged approaches. Fire torpedoes from periscope depth, dive deep, escape unseen. Morton is doing the opposite. He's attacking on the surface, in daylight, using his 4-inch deck gun as his primary weapon, and he's about to sink 3 cargo ships in a single afternoon, proving that everything the Navy taught about submarine warfare is wrong. By the bridge, Executive Officer Richard O'Kane scans the horizon through binoculars. Smoke bearing 045, Captain. Looks like a convoy. Morton grins. Battle station surface. Load the deck gun. We're going hunting. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. What Morton doesn't know is that his radical tactics are about to transform American submarine warfare. By late 1944, aggressive surface attacks will account for over 40% of all Japanese merchant ships sunk by submarines. The silent service is about to become the loudest, most devastating commerce raiding force in naval history. The revolution began not with new technology or better torpedoes, but with a simple, heretical realization. American submarines were faster on the surface than Japanese merchant ships, and their deck guns were more reliable than their torpedoes. The transformation started with technology nobody expected would matter. In August 1942, the first SJ surface search radar was installed aboard American submarines. Naval engineers designed it as a navigation aid, something to help boats avoid collisions in fog. Within months, aggressive commanders like Morton realized it was something far more valuable, a hunting weapon that turned night into day. The SJ radar could detect ships at ranges up to 20,000 yards, nearly 12 miles, on a pitch-black night. A submarine commander could track entire convoys without ever raising his periscope, plot intercept courses, maneuver into position, all while remaining invisible on the surface. For the first 2 years of war, submarine doctrine demanded submerged attacks. Approach underwater, fire torpedoes, from periscope depth, dive deep and escape. It was safe, stealthy, and catastrophically inefficient. Submerged submarines travelled at 2 to 3 knots, barely faster than walking pace. Their battery-powered electric motors could sustain 9 knots for 1 hour before batteries died, leaving the boat helpless. Attack runs took hours of careful stalking, miss your shot, and the target escaped while you spent 12 hours recharging batteries. Surface attacks changed everything. Diesel-powered submarines could reach 18 to 20 knots on the surface, faster than most Japanese cargo ships' 12-knot cruising speed. A submarine could chase down fleeing merchants, overhaul convoys, attack multiple targets in a single night. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. But surface attacks violated everything pre-war doctrine taught. Submarines were supposed to hide. Surfacing meant exposure to aircraft, destroyers, shore batteries. Navy training emphasized caution, stealth, diving to safety at the first sign of danger. Then came Dudley Morton and USS Wahoo. Morton took command of Wahoo in late December 1942, after 2 lackluster patrols under her previous captain. Morale was terrible. The submarine had found targets but scored few hits. Torpedo failures plagued every attack. The crew knew their boat was underperforming. Morton's first meeting with his crew became legendary. Standing in the cramped forward torpedo room, surrounded by 79 men, he delivered a speech that would define a new era of submarine warfare. The Wahoo is expendable. Morton announced, his slow southern drawl filling the compartment. We're not out here to come home safely. We're here to sink enemy ships. I'm going to take this boat into harbours, into shallow water, wherever the enemy is. We're going to hunt them down and kill them. He paused, looking at faces that showed surprise, concern, excitement. If anyone doesn't want to come along under these conditions, see the yeoman now. I'm giving him authority to transfer anyone without prejudice. Nothing will be said about staying behind. Not one man requested transfer. Morton implemented radical changes. He put Executive Officer Richard O'Kane at the periscope during attacks, freeing himself to manage the complete tactical picture. He drilled his gun crews relentlessly on surface operations. He studied convoy routes, shipping schedules, Japanese patrol patterns, and he decided that Wahoo would attack on the surface whenever possible, using her 4-inch deck gun to save precious torpedoes for high-value targets. January 16, 1943. Wahoo departed Brisbane, Australia, heading for Japanese-held WWII harbour on New Guinea's north coast. Morton had no charts of the harbour, only a cheap school atlas that machinist's mate Dalton Keeter had bought in a Brisbane bookstore. January 24th. Using Keeter's atlas for navigation, Morton took Wahoo into WWII harbour in broad daylight. Inside the harbour sat the Japanese destroyer Harusame, nested with several submarines. Standard doctrine: observe from outside the harbour, wait for targets to emerge, attack in open water where escape routes existed. Morton: we're going in. Battle stations torpedo. Wahoo penetrated the harbour submerged, manoeuvring within 1,200 yards of Harusame. Morton fired 3 torpedoes. All missed. The destroyer spotted the torpedo wakes and turned to attack. With his position revealed and a destroyer charging toward him, Morton did something that should have been suicide. He fired a 4th torpedo straight down Harusame's throat, timing the shot so the weapon would hit the destroyer head-on as it closed. Broke his back, Morton noted laconically in his patrol report. The explosion was terrific. Harusame's keel fractured. The destroyer settled into the harbour, broken but not sunk. Wahoo escaped through the harbour entrance, dodging depth charges, reaching open water intact. 2 days later, Morton encountered a 4-ship convoy. The transport, Buyo, Maru, 3 cargo ships, escorted by destroyers. Wahoo attacked submerged, sinking Buyo Maru with torpedoes. Then, low on ammunition but high on aggression, Morton surfaced to pursue the fleeing cargo ships. Battle stations surface. Man the deck gun. For the next 14 hours, Wahoo conducted what Morton called a running gun and torpedo battle. The submarine raced across the surface, chasing cargo ships, firing her deck gun at ranges under 2,000 yards, manoeuvring like a destroyer. When targets fled in different directions, Morton split his attacks, using torpedoes on one ship, while his gun crew engaged another. By day's end, Wahoo had sunk or damaged 6 ships. Morton radioed Pearl Harbor. Wahoo running gun battle. Destroyer gunning. Wahoo running. The message electrified Submarine Force headquarters. A submarine, the supposedly vulnerable undersea boat, had fought a surface action against multiple targets and won. February 7th, 1943. Wahoo arrived. At Pearl Harbor, with a broom lashed to her periscope, the traditional signal of a clean sweep. Admiral Charles Lockwood, Commander Submarine Force Pacific, met Morton at the dock personally. "Describe your tactics," Lockwood ordered. Morton's explanation was simple. "Sir, we stayed on the surface, used radar to find targets, attacked at night when we could, used the deck gun to save torpedoes, ran down anything that tried to escape. We're faster than cargo ships. Why hide when we can hunt?" Lockwood studied Wahoo's patrol report. 6 ships sunk, 14 hours of surface combat, 0 damage to Wahoo. The success rate was extraordinary, especially compared to the torpedo failures plaguing submerged attacks. "You violated every tactical doctrine we teach," Lockwood said finally. Morton met his gaze. "Yes, sir, but we sank ships." Instead of reprimanding Morton for recklessness, he held a conference of submarine commanders and ordered them to study Wahoo's tactics: surface attacks, radar-guided intercepts, deck gun engagements, aggressive pursuit of fleeing targets. "Gentlemen," Lockwood told his captains, "Commander Morton has shown us a better way to fight this war." The timing was critical. By early 1943, the Mark 14 torpedo crisis was approaching resolution. New depth control mechanisms and modified magnetic exploders were reducing failure rates, but even working torpedoes were expensive, slow to manufacture, and limited. Each submarine carried only 24 fish. Fire them all, and you had to return to base, ending your patrol early. Deck gun ammunition was cheap, plentiful, and effective against merchant ships. A 4-inch shell could hole a cargo ship's side, destroy steering gear, wreck engines, and submarines carried hundreds of rounds, enough for dozens of surface engagements. The 4-inch 50-caliber deck gun that equipped most Gato-class submarines fired a 33-pound high-explosive shell, capable of penetrating merchant ship hulls at ranges exceeding 7,000 yards. Rate of fire with a well-trained crew, 15 to 18 rounds per minute. A submarine could fire more shells in 2 minutes than it carried torpedoes for an entire patrol. More importantly, deck guns didn't malfunction. No depth control failures, no magnetic exploder problems, no contact detonator duds. Point the gun at the target, pull the lanyard, the shell hits where you aim it. Warfare reduced to its simplest form: see target, shoot target, sink target. But surface attacks required speed, and speed required radical changes in submarine design doctrine. Pre-war American submarines like the S-boats and Tambor class were designed primarily for submerged operations. Their deck guns were almost afterthoughts, mounted low on the deck where wave action made them difficult to operate. Gun crews had minimal protection, just a small spray shield. Loading. Ammunition in rough seas was dangerous, sometimes impossible. The Gato class and newer Balao class submarines, entering service from 1942 onward, incorporated lessons from early war experience. Deck guns were mounted higher, on reinforced platforms. Ready ammunition lockers were positioned near the gun, allowing gun crews to sustain fire without running to interior magazine spaces. Some boats received enlarged spray shields, giving gunners better protection. By mid-1943, submarine commanders were requesting heavier armament. The Navy responded by retrofitting boats with 5-inch 25-caliber guns taken from decommissioned battleships. These weapons fired 54-pound shells capable of destroying small warships, not just merchant vessels. Some submarines received dual 5-inch guns, one forward and one aft, turning them into surface raiders comparable to destroyer escorts. USS Barb, under command of Eugene Fluckey, would later mount rocket launchers on her deck, becoming the only submarine in history to conduct shore bombardment with ground rockets. But guns alone didn't make surface attacks successful. The real revolution came from combining 4 technologies: radar, radios, decoded intelligence, and aggressive commanders willing to violate doctrine. The SJ radar let submarines detect targets beyond visual range, track multiple contacts simultaneously, plot intercept courses in darkness. By early 1943, every American submarine in the Pacific carried functioning SJ radar. Japanese escorts, by contrast, wouldn't receive radar in significant numbers until September 1944, giving Americans an 18-month technological advantage. Radio intelligence provided submarine commanders with decoded Japanese shipping schedules, convoy routes, cargo manifests. The Maru Code, broken by American cryptanalysts in January 1943, revealed the positions and courses of Japanese merchant ships. in near real time. Submarines could position themselves along convoy routes, waiting like predators at a waterhole. Secure radio communications let multiple submarines coordinate attacks. Submerged submarines communicated poorly, limited to short-range underwater sound signals. Surface submarines could transmit over hundreds of miles, allowing Wolfpack tactics adapted from German U-boat operations in the Atlantic. 3 or 4 submarines working together could bracket a convoy, attacking from multiple directions simultaneously, overwhelming escorts, pursuing fleeing merchant ships in different directions. What one submarine missed, another sank. But the most important factor was psychological. Surface attacks required aggressive commanders willing to take risks that pre-war doctrine explicitly prohibited. Men who trusted their radar, trusted their guns, and trusted their crews to fight on the surface against targets that could shoot back. By late 1943, Admiral Lockwood had identified his aggressive commanders and was giving them the best boats, the most productive patrol areas, the freedom to implement their own tactics. Commander Eugene Fluckey, Wahoo's original torpedo officer before receiving his own command. Commander Samuel Dealey of USS Harder. Commander Richard O'Kane, promoted from executive officer to captain of USS Tang. Commander George Street of USS Tirante. These men shared Morton's philosophy. Submarines should hunt aggressively, attack on the surface when possible, use deck guns to conserve torpedoes, pursue fleeing targets relentlessly. By mid-1943, they were sinking Japanese ships at unprecedented rates. But individual submarines, however aggressive, had limitations. A single boat could only be in one place at one time. Japanese convoys were spreading across thousands of miles of ocean. The solution came from studying an enemy, German U-boats. In March 1943, Admiral Ernest King, Chief of RETI, Naval Operations, sent a classified message to Admiral Nimitz at Pearl Harbor. The memo was direct. Form a tactical group of 4 to 6 submarines trained and indoctrinated in coordinated action. King had spent the previous 2 years fighting German U-boats in the Atlantic. He'd watched Wolfpack tactics devastate Allied convoys. Now he wanted American submarines to use those same tactics against Japanese shipping. Admiral Lockwood received the directive with skepticism. Coordinating multiple submarines required constant radio communication. Radio transmissions could be detected by enemy direction finders. German U-boats operated in the North Atlantic, relatively close to friendly bases, with short communications ranges. American submarines in the Pacific operated thousands of miles from Pearl Harbor with limited radio capabilities. But King's order was explicit. Lockwood assigned the project to Captain Charles Swede Mommsen and Captain John Babe Brown. Mommsen was legendary in submarine circles. In 1929, he'd invented the Mommsen lung, the submarine escape device that saved countless lives. In 1939, he'd directed the rescue of survivors from USS Squalus after she sank off New Hampshire. Now, in mid-1943, he was at Pearl Harbor working on torpedo improvements. Brown had extensive patrol experience and understood the practical challenges of coordinating submarines at sea. Together, Mommsen and Brown began developing American Wolfpack doctrine. Their laboratory was the Bachelor Officers' Quarters dance floor at Pearl Harbor Submarine Base. Using models and charts, they worked out patrol formations, communication protocols, attack procedures. Unlike German Wolfpacks, which were controlled by shore commanders who directed operations via radio, American packs would be led by the senior captain at sea, giving operational flexibility. October 1st, 1943. 3 submarines departed Midway Island: USS Cerro, USS Shad, and USS Greyback. They formed the first official American Wolfpack, commanded by Captain Mommsen himself. The experiment was cautious. The 3 boats patrolled together but attacked independently, more like a coordinated patrol line than a true pack. Results were modest. 3 Japanese ships sunk, valuable experience gained. But Mommsen proved coordination was possible. Submarines could communicate via high-frequency radio, share target information, position themselves for multiple simultaneous attacks. The doctrine needed refinement, but the concept worked. Over the following months, tactics evolved rapidly. Experience showed that 3 boat packs were optimal, large enough to overwhelm convoy escorts, but small enough to coordinate effectively. Wolf packs received colourful names based on their commanders: Blair's Blasters, Park's Pirates, Whitaker's Wolves. The tactics were straightforward but deadly. 3 submarines would patrol in loose formation, typically spread 15 to 20 miles apart, creating a search line 60 miles wide. When one boat detected a convoy via radar, it would shadow the target while radiating position reports to the other 2 submarines. The pack commander would analyze convoy course, speed, escort disposition, then position his boats for a coordinated night surface attack. Submarines would approach from different directions simultaneously, splitting the escort's attention, creating confusion, maximizing hits. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. Navy analysis in early 1945 showed that 3 boat wolf packs sank or damaged 40% more ships than 3 submarines operating individually. The mathematics of concentration proved overwhelming. May 16, 1944, Blair's Blasters put to sea. USS Pintado, USS Pilotfish, and USS Shark. Captain Leon Chief Blair commanded the pack from Pintado. All 3 boats were brand-new Balao-class submarines on their first war patrols, commanded by first-time captains. Blair had never been on a war patrol. He'd joined the Navy after serving in the Army during World War I, graduated from Annapolis in 1923, spent 20 years working toward this moment. May 22nd, Blair's radar operator detected a 10-ship convoy northeast of the Mariana Islands. 7 cargo ships, 3 escorts. The convoy was heading south, carrying supplies for Japanese garrisons preparing for the American invasion. Blair radioed his pack, large convoy bearing 090, estimated speed 12 knots, preparing to attack after dark. Pintado shadowed the convoy through the afternoon, while Pilotfish and Shark maneuvered into flanking positions. By 2200 hours, 3 submarines surrounded the convoy in a 50-mile triangle. Blair's order was simple: attack independently on my signal, target escorts first. Go. The night erupted in violence. Pintado attacked from the convoy's port quarter, firing 6 torpedoes at the leading escort destroyer. 3 hits. The destroyer exploded, broke in half, sank within 4 minutes. Pilotfish, positioned ahead of the convoy, fired 4 torpedoes at a cargo ship. 2 hits, amidships. The merchantman, loaded with aviation fuel, detonated in a fireball visible 20 miles away. Shark attacked from starboard, targeting the remaining escorts with deck gunfire while firing torpedoes at the cargo ships. Chaos reigned. Japanese ships scattered in all directions. Escort commanders couldn't determine how many submarines were attacking or from which directions. Radio traffic exploded with confused, contradictory orders. The wolf pack hunted through the night. When escorts pursued one submarine, the others surfaced and attacked undefended merchants. When Japanese destroyers dropped depth charges on suspected submarine positions, American boats were miles away, circling for new attacks. By dawn, 7 Japanese ships rested on the Pacific floor. The 3 submarines had expended 32 torpedoes and over 200 rounds of deck gun ammunition. Not one American submarine had sustained damage. Blair radioed Pearl Harbor. 7 confirmed sinkings, all boats operational, continuing patrol. The success of Blair's blasters removed all doubt about Wolfpack effectiveness. Over the next 14 months, more than 100 coordinated attack groups would deploy into the Pacific. accounting for nearly 40% of all Japanese merchant tonnage sunk by submarines. But wolf packs weren't just about torpedo attacks. The most dramatic engagements combined surface attacks, deck gunfire, and coordinated maneuvers that turned submarine warfare into something resembling surface naval combat. July 31st, 1944, Philippine Sea. Lieutenant Commander Lawson Red Ramage commanded USS Parche, operating as part of Park's Pirates Wolfpack. Ramage's radar detected a heavily defended convoy, 8 cargo ships, 4 destroyers, 2 submarine chasers. Standard Wolfpack doctrine called for coordinated attacks from multiple submarines, but Parche's sister boats were 30 miles away, too distant to coordinate effectively before the convoy passed. Ramage made a decision that violated every cautious tactical rule. He would attack alone, on the surface, in the middle of the convoy. Battle station's surface. Stand by all torpedo tubes. Load the deck gun. We're going in. At 2300 hours, Parche ran on the surface at full speed, directly into the center of the Japanese formation. Ramage maneuvered like a destroyer, weaving between merchant ships, firing torpedoes at point-blank range, sometimes less than 800 yards. The Japanese escorts, expecting submerged attacks from outside the convoy, never imagined a submarine would surface among the merchant ships. Parche's silhouette in the darkness looked like another escort destroyer. By the time Japanese lookouts realized what was happening, Ramage had fired 10 torpedoes and sunk 3 cargo ships. Then the escorts figured it out. Searchlights blazed across the water, seeking Parche. Destroyers turned inward, closing on Ramage's position. Depth charges began exploding in Parche's wake. Ramage didn't dive. Instead, he opened fire with his deck gun, targeting the nearest escort at 1,500 yards. The 4-inch shells struck the destroyer's bridge, killing the captain, destroying the searchlight, creating confusion. Still on the surface, Ramage raced through the burning convoy at 18 knots, firing his remaining torpedoes at fleeing cargo ships. Explosions lit the Pacific night. Japanese radio traffic dissolved into panic. Escorts dropped depth charges blindly, hitting nothing, while Parche escaped into the darkness. When dawn broke, 5 Japanese ships were sinking or sunk. Ramage had conducted the most audacious surface attack in American submarine history, directly penetrating an enemy convoy and fighting his way out against overwhelming opposition. The Medal of Honor citation would describe it as extraordinary heroism and conspicuous gallantry. But Ramage's epic attack demonstrated something more important. With radar, functioning torpedoes, deck guns, and aggressive commanders, American submarines had become surface raiders comparable to destroyers. The transformation was complete. By late 1944, American submarines were attacking on the surface more than 50% of the time. The silent service had become a surface navy, hunting Japanese merchant ships with radar-guided wolf packs, deck gun barrages, and aggressive tactics that would have been unthinkable in 1941. The strategic impact was catastrophic for Japan. Monthly shipping losses, which averaged 50,000 tons in 1942, soared to over 200,000 tons by mid-1944. Japanese merchant capacity, which totaled 6 million tons in December 1941, had shrunk to less than 2 million tons by August 1945. Bulk commodities reaching Japan fell from 19.4 million tons in 1942 to just 16.4 million tons in 1943. By 1944, that figure had collapsed to less than 10 million tons. Oil imports, the lifeblood of Japan's war machine, virtually ceased. The Japanese Navy, which had consumed 6,300 barrels of oil per hour during the attack on Pearl Harbor, was by late 1944 rationing fuel so severely that carrier pilots received minimal training. Battleships sat at anchor, immobilized not by American bombs but by empty fuel tanks. Japanese industrial production, dependent on raw materials from conquered territories, ground toward collapse. Aluminum from Malaya, rubber from Indochina, iron ore from the Philippines, all stopped arriving. Factories fell silent. Aircraft production dropped 70%. tank manufacturing virtually ceased. The human cost was staggering, not just to Japanese soldiers and sailors, but to the civilian population facing starvation as food imports disappeared. By 1945, the average Japanese citizen consumed fewer than 1,600 calories daily, below the minimum needed for basic health. Rice imports from Taiwan and Korea, which had sustained Japan's urban population, stopped arriving. American submarines sank the cargo ships carrying food before they reached Japanese ports. Japanese Army records, declassified after the war, revealed that of 1.7 million military deaths between 1941 and 1945, nearly 1 million resulted from starvation, not combat. Soldiers on isolated Pacific islands, cut off by American submarine interdiction, ate tree bark, grass, anything to survive. The Cabinet of Japan would report to the Diet, after surrender, that the greatest cause of defeat was the loss of shipping, not the atomic bombs, not the island-hopping campaign, not the destruction of the Imperial Navy. The loss of merchant ships strangled Japan's ability to wage war, and American submarines, attacking on the surface with radar, deck guns, and wolf-pack tactics, sank 56% of all Japanese merchant tonnage lost during the war. The numbers tell the story of transformation. In 1942, American submarines conducted 168 war patrols, sinking 134 Japanese ships, totaling 580,000 tons. Success rate: less than 1 ship per patrol. In 1943, with improved torpedoes and early surface attack tactics, 350 patrols sank 335 ships, totaling 1.5 million tons. Success rate: nearly 1 ship per patrol. In 1944, with wolf packs, reliable torpedoes, comprehensive radar coverage, and aggressive surface tactics fully implemented, 520 patrols sank 603 ships, totaling 2.7 million tons. Success rate: more than 1 ship per patrol. The transformation reached its pinnacle in the first 8 months of 1945. Before Japan's surrender, submarines continued hunting what little remained of the merchant fleet, sometimes finding targets so scarce they resorted to shelling fishing boats with deck guns. The final irony: by late 1944, American submarines faced a new problem. There weren't enough Japanese ships left to sink. Submarine commanders patrolled for weeks without finding targets. The merchant marine that had totaled 6 million tons in December 1941 had been reduced to rubble. The cost to the submarine force was proportionally devastating. 52 American submarines were lost during the war, with 3,506 officers and men killed. The casualty rate, 20%, was the highest of any branch of American military service. Some losses resulted from the tactics that made surface attacks successful. USS Wahoo, Dudley Morton's legendary command, was lost in October 1943 while operating on the surface in the Sea of Japan. Japanese aircraft spotted her, attacked with depth charges and bombs, sank her with all 79 hands. Morton's aggressive tactics had made Wahoo the most successful submarine in the Pacific. Those same tactics killed him and his entire crew. The submarine that revolutionized American underwater warfare became a victim of the revolution it started. USS Tang, commanded by Richard O'Kane, Morton's former executive officer, sank 24 Japanese ships before being destroyed by her own torpedo in October 1944. The weapon malfunctioned, circled back, struck Tang's stern, sent her to the bottom. O'Kane survived, was captured, spent the rest of the war as a prisoner. He received the Medal of Honor after repatriation, but the tactics that cost American lives saved far more. Naval historians estimate that if American submarines had operated with fully functional torpedoes and aggressive surface tactics from December 1941 onward, the Pacific War might have ended a year earlier. A year of war. Tens of thousands of American, Japanese, Filipino, Chinese lives potentially saved. The atomic bombs perhaps unnecessary. The mathematics of alternate history remain speculative, but the central fact is undeniable. Submarine warfare works. Commerce raiding destroys economies, And American submarines, attacking on the surface with radar and deck guns, proved it beyond any doubt. The lessons learned in the Pacific influenced submarine design and doctrine for decades. Post-war American submarines retained deck guns through the 1950s. The nuclear-powered USS Nautilus, commissioned in 1954, carried torpedo tubes but also maintained surface warfare capabilities. Modern American attack submarines still train for surface operations, though the role has evolved. Tomahawk cruise missiles replaced deck guns, sophisticated electronics replaced simple radar, but the fundamental principle remains. Submarines are not just underwater hunters. They're versatile weapons platforms capable of operating on the surface when tactical advantage demands it. The commanders who pioneered surface attack tactics became legends. Eugene Fluckey, who commanded USS Barb through multiple war patrols, received the Medal of Honor for extraordinary heroism. He survived the war, retired as Rear Admiral, died in 2006 at age 93. Samuel Dealey, commander of USS Harder, received the Medal of Honor posthumously after his submarine was lost with all hands in August 1944. His aggressive tactics inspired an entire generation of submarine commanders. Richard O'Kane survived imprisonment, received the Medal of Honor, became the most decorated submarine commander in American naval history. He retired as Rear Admiral, spent decades advocating for submarine veterans, died in 1994. Admiral Charles Lockwood, who championed aggressive tactics and fixed the torpedo crisis, retired in 1947 with 3 distinguished service medals. He never spoke publicly about the bureaucratic battles he fought to give his commanders weapons that worked and permission to use them aggressively. He died in 1967, mourned by hundreds of former submariners who credited him with saving their lives. But perhaps the most important legacy belongs to Dudley Morton and USS Wahoo, the submarine and crew that proved surface attacks could work, the commander who violated every cautious doctrine and won. Wahoo's wreck was discovered in 2006, resting in La Perouse Strait, where Japanese aircraft sank her in October 1943. The submarine lies in 200 feet of water, her hull broken, her crew still aboard. When Japanese researchers located the wreck, they reported finding the conning tower hatch open. Morton had been on the surface when Japanese aircraft attacked. He'd stayed on the surface, fighting back with his deck gun, attempting to shoot down the bombers even as depth charges exploded around his submarine. Wahoo went down fighting on the surface, exactly as Morton would have wanted. The submarine that revolutionized American tactics died defending the doctrine it created. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe. The final accounting reveals the magnitude of what surface attacks accomplished. Between October 1943, when Wolfpack and surface tactics became standard, and August 1945, when Japan surrendered, American submarines sank approximately 3.9 million tons of Japanese merchant shipping. That represents 73% of all tonnage submarines destroyed during the entire war, achieved in just 22 months. The transformation from cautious, submerged operations to aggressive, surface Wolfpack attacks didn't just change submarine warfare. It won the Pacific War. Japan's economy collapsed not from carrier battles or island invasions, but from the slow strangulation of its merchant marine by American submarines hunting on the surface, guided by radar, armed with deck guns, organized in wolfpacks. 80 Japanese merchant ships sinking every month by mid-1944. Not because of new technology, not because of better torpedoes, though those helped, but because American submarine commanders learned to surface, hunt aggressively, attack like destroyers, and trust their radar to find targets in the darkness. The silent service became the deadly service, and Japan's merchant fleet paid the price. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.